Good afternoon. I'm Saad Al-Aziz, the owner and head instructor of Semper Fortis Jiu Jitsu here in San Antonio, Texas, and here to tackle this week's question of the week. This week's question of the week came from a couple different sources. One was a fellow school owner who was asking me about how I maintain a positive culture at my school. And then there was a dispute on social media. A tournament organizer posted a video of a jiu-jitsu match, and I think it was between two blue belts, and one of them was just showing horrible sportsmanship. And the tournament organizer was asking, do you think I should have disqualified the person showing this bad sportsmanship? And it was basically he was taunting his opponent while he was beating him. It was really outrageous, the conduct of this blue belt. And I said, dude, not only would I disqualify the guy, but had he trained at my school wearing my patch on his back, I'd have thrown him out of the school for that kind of behavior. Like, I'm not tolerating that kind of garbage. You're not going to represent me and my team being that way. And so that leads to this week's question of the week is like, some people in business, because Semper Fortis, we've been open for 6 years, we've been in business. And some people think in business, that the customer is always right. And that's like a myth. Like, you can't run your business on that. Maybe if you're McDonald's or Walmart or H-E-B, you run some model that says, oh, the customer's always right. But until you start seeing me show up in a clown outfit, calling myself Ronald McDonald, the customer ain't always right here. And so sometimes a person is just a bad fit for my school, and I'm not going to let them train here. So if they show that they're a bully, it's like there's an old saying, don't always believe what people say, but believe what people show you. If you show me through your actions that you're not a good person, I'd rather you just train someplace else, and I'll invite you to leave my school and find another school to train at. So that's how I feel about people who have bad sportsmanship. So when we got people getting ready to compete in a couple weeks, if a student goes out there and loses badly, I'm 100% in your corner. I support you, and you have brought no shame to our school, to our association. You went out and you gave it your best. But if a student goes out there and shows bad sportsmanship, now I got a problem with them. That's the only way you would embarrass me in a tournament, is if you showed bad sportsmanship. If you went out there, refused to shake your opponent's hand, or, I've seen people strike people in tournaments. Seen people taunt people in tournaments. And I'm like, no, not on my team you're not going to. There may be other teams out there that are perfectly fine with it. And of course there are. There was an incident 3 or 4 years ago up at the Austin IBJJF Open, where it was a match between two white belts. And one white belt ends up winning the match. And then the instructor of the other white belt, he gets so mad, he climbs over the yellow railing. So he climbs over a fence, he picks up a chair, he throws it at the white belt on the mat and hits him. And then he walks on the mat and he shoves the white belt. And I saw people all in his association making excuses for why, he was so emotional and why he did what he did. And it's like, dude, what he did was indefensible. You cannot do that. And his association should be ashamed that dude walks around with their patch on his back. Because for me, he'd have been done. They're like, no. A black belt in my school, any belt in my school, that have done something like that, dude, you're out. Like, you're not going to be on my team. There's other teams that will embrace you with open arms, just not mine. So some people just aren't a good fit, and I won't tolerate dishonorable behavior. Also, I won't tolerate sexual predators. If somebody's in here sexually harassing one of my students, and I find out about it, it's like, hey, there's the door, you're out. Like, I don't need to understand why you do what you do. You're just not going to do that here. Basic bullies, if people are just, they bully people, or, they have dangerous training habits where they're injuring people. Like, I used to teach at a school several years ago where we had this student, he was an MMA fighter, and seemed like every week or every 2 weeks, he would injure one of the other students at the school. And it would always be the same old silly line. Well, they didn't tap in time. It's like, you didn't know what was going to happen when you had their arm locked and then you threw your hips in the air. You knew you was going to break their arm, but you did it anyways, and you're just training? They didn't tap in time? Like, really? And, I had to tell the school owner, I'm like, dude, you got to get rid of this guy because he's costing you money. And the owner was like, well, he pays his tuition on time every month. I'm like, yeah, but let's say tuition is $100 a month. As soon as he injures one person, now you're training him for free. When he injures 2, 3, and I knew this guy was up to like 5 people. I'm like, you were losing several $100s keeping this dude, letting him continue to train and injure others. And that's the same thing, like if you find a sexual predator at your school. Like, you're like, well, they pay their tuition. Yeah, but now they just done run off 2, 3, 4 people. You're losing money keeping a bad apple in your school like that. You have to get rid of them. So that's how you maintain a positive culture in your school, is you don't lower your standards. Like, in martial arts, we talk about things like honor. Like, you can't allow dishonorable conduct at your school, in your place of business, and then think, well, I keep these dishonorable people, but, we have honor. It's like, no, really you don't. If dishonorable people are representing your team's not very, very honorable. That's just how it is, like I had an incident where, just a couple weeks ago, I had to throw a student out of the school, because he had a bad attitude. He was training dangerously. He had come to us from another school, and he wouldn't listen. I tried to, give him some guidance on like, hey, that kind of behavior is not acceptable here. And, he wasn't interested in listening to that. And he continued to do it. And I'm like, oh, you mistakenly thought you was at McDonald's where the customer is always right. I let him know, yeah, dude, this is your last day. Take your gi off, get out of my school. We're done. So the customer is not always right with me. If you come in with a bad attitude, like, I'm not keeping you. Why? Why would I? And that bad attitude would have run off other students. So it's like, oh, I'd rather just let this guy go. Had another incident, it was maybe 5 years ago. Had a student, I really liked the guy. I had just recently promoted him to purple belt, and like maybe 2 days later, one of the police officers here at the school was like, hey, one of your students is in jail. And I'm like, what did he do? Beat his wife. Oh, well, that's a problem. And then the person went on and explained, yeah, he's currently on probation for beating his previous spouse, and his probation is going to be revoked, and he's going to go do some jail time now. And so the guy, he tried to come back to the school. And I'm like, oh no, we're not training you anymore. Like, I'll train your wife, on how to defend herself against you, but you're done at this school. And so I threw him out of the school. Some people thought that was very unfair. And I'm like, well, you're welcome to leave too, but I'm not keeping a wife beater at my school. I did not retire after 33 years in the Navy and take up teaching martial arts to teach people to do bad things, to teach bad people to do bad things to good people. Like, that's not my goal. I want to teach good people how to defend themselves against the bad people of the world. That's what I want to do. I don't want to make bullies more competent, more skilled, definitely not domestic violence, or, like if you find out, oh, this person is a convicted sexual offender. Oh, well, he's done. Like, I don't run criminal background checks on everybody when they sign up. But if I find out, oh, you're convicted you've been convicted of sexual assault, definitely, like, you're done. I'm not training you. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people don't do IBJJF black belt certification, is they require you to run a criminal background check. So when you get your black belt through that, and the IBJJF does their certification, they do a criminal background. You have to submit a criminal background check. Not everybody can pass that test. And then every time I went in for a stripe, I had to submit another criminal background check just in case I committed a crime in between stripes, which would have made me ineligible for certification from the IBJJF. A lot of people won't submit that because a lot of associations, I don't want to say a lot, there are associations out there that have been exposed that have sexual predators in their ranks, and they won't filter them out. You know, they believe, oh, these people deserve second chances or third chances or whatever. And I'm like, I don't think so. At least you're not going to be on my team training at my school. It's like, take up something else. So that's my deal. Customers are not always right. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is not for everybody. I think that's what I'll title this video. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is not for everybody. If you're a bad person, if you're a criminal, you know, if you're a sexual predator, which would all go back to bad person, I'm not training you. I don't want you at my school. I don't want your $110 a month. Don't need it that bad that I would compromise my values to train somebody like that. So I know there's other people out there that have different views, and that's cool. They can do what they do. You know, they can run their own school. And I think when I posted throwing that student out, the blue belt that was doing the bad behavior, some blue belt said, oh, that's pretty harsh. That's no way to run a business. And I thought, one, you're a blue belt. Two, what businesses have you actually run? You know, like, everybody wants to, you're like, if you're going to give advice, you ought to have some expertise. But there's schools that allow that, that'll tolerate that behavior. I'm just not the one. And that's how, back to my friend's question, who's a fellow school owner, how do you cultivate a good culture? You know, how do you maintain that at your school? The way you maintain it is you have to trim off some people. There are going to be people that are not good fits for your culture, and you got to let them go because their tuition isn't worth it, because they're going to run your students off, and you're compromising your values training them. So that's this week's question of the week. Feel free to comment below. You can like, dislike, make your comment, and then if you got a question for next week, I'm always game to tackle the questions that come up. And hope everybody has a great week and a great 4th of July, just in case I don't get to do a chance to do another video before then. All right, ciao.